Welcome to the PinkpillRx podcast, hosted by Katie and Jay Fillmore, where we navigate complex and thought-provoking topics surrounding women with a focus on education. For shorter form content, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at Caters88 or PinkpillRx.
That's KATORS88.
If you enjoy this podcast, please give us a follow and maybe a nice review.
The system that benefits men is the same one that's breaking them. Introducing How Patriarchy Harms Men, an e-course that unpacks how the same structures that grant men power also isolate them emotionally, distort relationships, and suppress authenticity. This e-course is for men ready to understand themselves beyond conditioning, and for women who want to better understand the men they love, work with, and raise. We're launching this e-course coming in March. Podcast listeners get $20 off with the code podcast. Patreon supporters, watch for your exclusive bigger discount before launch. Most of us were raised in homes and schools where discipline meant control, obedience, compliance, and often silence. It meant the adult had authority and the child had to submit. And if they didn't, the consequence wasn't curiosity, it was punishment. Traditional discipline is built on hierarchy. There's always someone at the top, there's someone beneath them, the person at the top enforces the order, and the person beneath them learns that safety comes from staying small or staying agreeable or staying quiet. And that structure might sound familiar because it mirrors patriarchal power systems almost perfectly. Patriarchy runs on dominance, emotional suppression, and control. It rewards obedience. It punishes defiance, and it confuses fear with respect. And then we bring in that exact blueprint into our homes and call it good parenting. And we say things like, because I said so, or stop crying, or go to your room until you can behave, or you're being disrespectful. And what are we actually teaching in those moments? I think we're teaching that power flows one direction. We're teaching that big feelings are dangerous. We're teaching that belonging is conditional. And we're teaching that authority does not have to explain itself. And then we wonder why so many adults grow up dysregulated, people-pleasing, conflict avoidant, or power-hungry. Today, we are diving into positive discipline and what it actually looks like to a parent outside traditional discipline models, which often reflect power hierarchies following the rigid rules of patriarchy. Even if you don't have kids, this episode might shine some light on what you experienced growing up. We actually have a guest today to help us discuss this. My guest is Megan Campbell. She's an LCPC and owner of Rise and Thrive Wellness, aka she's a mental health professional. Megan also hosts a podcast called I Have Shit to Say, an explicit mental health podcast where nothing gets sugar-coated and new episodes drop every other Tuesday. We will link her podcast in the show notes. It's currently one of my favorite podcasts. I highly recommend it. Welcome, Megan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I saw Megan talk at an event I was attending.
Ooh.
And she spoke about positive discipline, and I was struck at the moment about what you were explaining was like exactly the opposite of patriarchal values.
Facts.
And I was like, whoa, holy cow, discipline totally, like the traditional discipline or the discipline
really
I grew up with. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is like a mirror of the patriarchy. And I was like, not that this idea of positive discipline is like new to me, because I feel like we don't spank, we don't do stuff like that. But like, I think it's deeper than that, obviously, what we're going to be talking about today.
Right.
But I have also felt just like aimless in my discipline journey because I don't have a blueprint. I didn't grow up. I mean,
also,
I grew
nobody
up
give you one. And unless you're like consuming all of the, I'm hitting things.
No, it's
sorry.
okay.
Like, unless you're consuming like a million books on that, like, and then how do you pick? Because there's like gentle parenting, there's a lot of conscious parenting, love and logic. There's just like a million different like programs per se.
Yeah.
So
I
didn't even know.
I didn't even know there's all these different kinds.
Listen.
Like I've heard of gentle parenting, and I know like the more brutal, like authoritarian parenting. But what were the other ones you just said?
All of the things.
You just rattled them off like they're nothing.
They're ones we often hear around town that people are like, I'm into this one. Love and Logic is a very, you guys might be interested in it, rooted in like the Christian values. And so it made its rounds around our community for a while.
Is it better than spare the rod, spoil the child? Because those are the Christian values I grew up with.
I mean, I don't know.
That wooden spoon.
Slightly. One core thing that I think So I've done positive discipline training for probably 12 years, but it's actually rooted in Adlerian psychology, which has been around since Freud. Like Freud and Alfred Adler were friends until they weren't. So when Adler basically was like the community matters, and Freud was like, really, I only care about money and like wealth and power and the patriarchy, right? And
Trauma.
So they like kind of split ways in theories. And so positive discipline is actually rooted in psychological understanding of human behavior and connection and belonging and significance. And this very large German word called Gemeinschaftsgefühl, which is really like social responsibility. So there's not really a translation per se for it, but this idea that like we're like all a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
So, which is not typically taught in discipline models. So most discipline models really are punishment. We just like to call them discipline. Mm-hmm. So that's like a really interesting thing in teaching classes. So I do like parent education. They do it for workplace. So there's like a lot of iterations. They do it for social emotional learning in schools and things like that. So because the core tenets of it apply to humans. Like I use it with my staff at work. And so one of the things that always strikes me is like things that we think are just discipline really just end up being used as punishment. So like school systems use PBIS and like reward systems, but like a reward is fine until a parent or an adult gets pissed and they're like, I'm going to take that thing from you. And then it just is a punishment, right? So like rewards don't, right? Like potty training. I currently have a 2-year-old and we're like working on potty training. It's so hard. I'm like, I mean, I don't want this to be a reward chart or a sticker chart or a get an M&M when you poop in the potty thing. Like when you're ready to go, you're just going to go. Like you see people doing it all the time.
Guilty.
But like it's the only thing that we're taught works, right?
Yeah. Like it seems like the only alternative or that I have been aware of to like the traditional parenting route, is this, it's, positive reinforcement and here's your reward and here's that.
That's the old, but that's like Pavlov's dog in psychology, right? If I ring a bell, you'll salivate for the thing, even if I don't give you the thing. So if I give you the reward, you'll eventually but what are we teaching them? Submission, behavior, doing what I want you to do, right? The whole school system is based on industrialization, creating factory workers to begin with too, right? So there's that's a whole, I'm actually filming a podcast on Friday with somebody about that. But if we deal with these traditional power structures, the goal is really always about how do we make somebody behave? How do we, right? We don't make space for their feelings. We don't make space for their experiences. We're not teaching them any skills of intrinsic value. It's all extrinsic. Praise is about making me happy about the thing you've done. Giving a reward is I'm the one bestowing the reward on you because I'm omnipotent. I'm the one that
still
has
those
it, right?
power hierarchies and stuff.
It's really
and it's all about obedience and compliance, even if it's positive reinforcement is what it kind of sounds like.
Teaches people to do what?
Be obedient.
Correct.
To get the reward.
Right. So we wonder why people are in abusive relationships more often than not these days. We wonder why, right? We wonder why all these things happen as adults or why they are increasing more and more and more, right? This is because they start at home. It's we call it IFS calls it a legacy burden, right? This thing that just keeps getting passed on and passed on. It's almost in the DNA, the epigenetics of it is really we don't know any different unless we choose to learn and educate ourselves differently. But if the whole world around you, if you're part of these moms groups, they're this is how I did it and this is what I'm supposed to do, or these parenting get-togethers, or the school's nope, you need to do this, or I'm sending your kid home unless they do this, right? How do you fight that system?
Yeah, how do you fight that system?
It's hard to find and I think it's when you're parenting, you're really in the trenches of something. It is straight up a battlefield.
That is the nicest version of parenting, right?
Yes.
If you haven't dealt with your shit before you have a kid, you're going to be faced with it.
You're going to be dealing with your shit after you have a kid. And that's a lot harder to do.
Yeah. And you're
on no sleep and right? Yep.
And you're just looking to survive or to make things work. I just need something to make this situation work. And I think that, it's easy to get to a place of more desperation. We're like, okay, well, what worked for you? Oh, that worked for you? Okay, well, I'm going to try that. Just because like you're just grabbing or reaching for any tool that you can find that's going to alleviate whatever dynamic is going on.
Right. And then on the flip side, we also have the parents that are so exhausted and so tired that they're just going to give in and enable anything the child wants because they don't want to fight anymore. Right. Like everything's either a power struggle and I'll either give you the thing if you do the thing I want you to do, or I've just given up. Like I've just totally given up. And so I'm just going to give you whatever you want. Right. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I do see it getting that way because I do feel like I can struggle with consistency when it comes to that because it's just feeling like, okay, whatever. Like I don't
have the bandwidth for it. And right, like it is really hard because it's like, if you're dysregulated, that's causing me to be dysregulated. How to right. We always talk in good faith of like, put your own oxygen mask on first. That's like really fucking hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like pardon my language, but like that's exhausting. Like when my kid is like screaming bloody murder and I'm in the car and I'm like, I can't help you. There's nothing I can do. Like we've tried the song. I've DJ'd what you've asked for. You don't want that. You want your socks on, your socks off. And it's just you and me in this car. I'm either pulling over the side of the road or I'm just going to like dissociate myself.
Yeah.
Right. Like there comes a point where sometimes you're just like, I'm going to give in.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you said about how, rather it's like authoritarian discipline model or rather it's, oh gosh, what did you say?
What did I say?
No, you're talking about the school and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about like the
reward systems. Yeah. Yes. That we're not really teaching skill. We're teaching compliance. We're teaching obedience. We're not teaching actual like life skills.
Or are we just setting them up for failure, right? So I also teach positive discipline in school settings as well for teachers. And we talk about, and this applies to parents as well, but like setting up the perfect school year. And it's kind of what you're talking about is like, when you just are exhausted that you have to give up, like you're forgetting that like you're going to be stuck in that pattern. So if you take the time to teach, if you take the time to sit down with the kids, like in the classroom or at home, it takes time. It takes regulation. It means maybe I'm going to plan 30 minutes instead of 10 minutes before we leave the house because I don't want to fight about putting your shoes on or I need to set up different systems to give the time and space to teach them that so that in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, I'm not having the same power struggle that I had with you. Right. And so I think so often we're like so tired and so exhausted that we're just like, just give me the thing, give me the fast food culture thing right now. But we forget that we're going to be stuck in that for the rest of time instead of teaching them those skills. So Adler will talk about, we all are reaching for these goals, like significance and belonging is one of them, like love and connection is one of them, right? Like being a part of something bigger than ourselves and purpose and matter. And so if we are not taught pro-social ways to do that, we're still going to move towards that goal, but we're going to do it in an antisocial way, right? So we don't necessarily talk about it in terms of just like that kid's bad and that kid's good, or like my kid is bad and my kid is good. It's kind of like, well, we make behavior choices, and under those behavior choices there's like a need, like an unidentified kind of need that isn't being met. And it is being kind of expressed in these maladaptive ways. So a big piece of positive discipline and Adler's psychology is like a misbehaving child is a discouraged child. And I would argue that actually a misbehaving human is a discouraged human. And so when it comes to mental health, when it comes to like misbehaving kids, it's like, how do we figure out how to encourage? And I don't mean give in and I don't mean like praise them, right? But like, how do we encourage them? And give them space to feel a part of things. So in family systems, like my 2-year-old, I just actually left to come to the podcast, and like my mom, like we live with my parents, and my mom was like giving her a rag to clean the windows. And I was like, this is awesome, right? Like she has a purpose. Like my mom was cleaning and she found a space for her to do this so that she was like, look, Mom, I'm cleaning. Right. And I was like, awesome. Right. Like, and I didn't need to give her a reward. Like she just felt good about it, so it's like little things like giving space for, yesterday she was climbing the stairs on the outside, not on the actual steps. And I was like, I'm going to lose it because she's going to fall and break something. But it was like, okay, I need to pause, let her do her thing. She like tripped and fell. And it was like, I'm not going to respond, which is really hard because I'm exhausted. I'm tired, right? Like, and then she got back up and did it again and was like, look, I did it, right? So she just needed to go through her process of failing and have space to problem solve. And if she needed help, have I taught her how to ask for help? I probably wouldn't have let her do it.
Yeah.
But, right, like within reason, like she was okay. It wasn't a safety issue. Like,
so the theory then is, going back to Adler, what you were saying is that the behaviors that we see in our children that, you know, look like disobedience or like not listening, right? Or
the big one we hear is defiance.
Okay. Yes. That
everybody loves that word.
There's an underlying need for belonging. Always. Or for what are the other ones that you said? Belonging
and significance is probably like the biggest one, right?
Okay.
So I'll find a way to belong and be significant, right? Like nobody wants to feel insignificant or like ostracized, right? That's a pretty core need. And like they talk about kind of like having that connection, but like really a purpose, like having a purpose, like feeling loved, feeling connected, feeling purposeful. And if we don't feel those things, we'll find ways to feel those things.
Mm-hmm. So in this scenario, we'll say defiance, right?
Yes.
So what are the steps? Like, what do we, like, how do I guess I have to regulate myself first, obviously.
Totally.
And then like explore if that is the need that is arising from them of.
Yeah. So there's actually a chart that comes with positive discipline. That's like pretty cool that we train parents and educators on. But Jane Nelson, the founder of Positive Discipline, she really boiled it down to that there are 4 mistaken goals of behavior. And so there's undue attention, meaning like they want and need attention. That's not a negative thing. Like we deserve to receive attention, weaponizing attention, like, or like the needs. So something we often hear in the mental health world is like, they're just doing it for attention. Well, yeah, like no shit. That's like a core need. Like we need to be significant. We need attention to be significant, right? Like it's not a bad thing to need attention. So undue attention would be like a core mistaken goal. Revenge, misguided power. So revenge is like, I'll get back at you because you've hurt me. And really usually there's coded messages under that of like, I'll hurt you because you hurt me. Misguided power is really like, I want to be in charge. Like, let me be in charge. I was totally that kid. Like, no shock that I run a business now, right? I was a terrible, like, little terror. I was totally that person that, like, if you spanked me, I would not cry, right? And so it's interesting. I'm also a middle child, so Adler really believes in a lot of, like, family birth order stuff, and we'll teach a lot on temperament, right? So your personality isn't fully developed until you're older, right? And we know that, like, your brain isn't developed till about 25, 27 years old. Personality kind of comes with that as well. So kids are in this version of like, they have a temperament, they have a leaning towards something. And some of that is the messages that they're getting, but some of it is also like they're ingrained personalities that are starting to form, which is kind of wild to watch having a 2-year-old. I'm like, oh, this is all her. Like she's becoming who she is. She'll be like, I told you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Tell me more. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And then the last one is, learned helplessness, which that one is kind of the scariest one when it comes to mental health, but it's also the one that parents and teachers typically do not intervene for. Like this is the kid that just like hangs out in their room all the time. They isolate. They might like sit in the classroom with their hood over their head and not do any work, not turn anything in. They're not a problem. And really what they're saying is like, leave me alone because I don't matter. And so in the 12 years that I've been training this and working with parents and coaching parents, and I'll do it one-on-one, I'll also do it in big groups. We do parent support groups with it. We also teach it in the classroom, and I also use it in like corporate workplaces. But nobody has ever shown me a behavior that doesn't fit in that. And the cool thing about the chart is, it's free online. We can also link it.
Okay.
You can just you can just even Google like the 4 mistaken goals, positive discipline, and it'll come up. But the chart has, if you as the adult feel this, and it gives you like list of feeling.
That's nice.
Right, because when you're not regulated, like it's really hard to be like, oh, I'm just going to take some deep breaths, or I'm going to like shake it out, right? Like, but it's like, okay, maybe at the end of the night, I handled that poorly. I'll pull it up on my phone and be like, oh yeah, I was definitely rageful about this thing, or I definitely felt this way, or I was annoyed, or I was irritated, right? And then you intervene. It doesn't matter how you intervene, but after you intervene, if they respond to your intervention in a certain way. So like, it works really well with like shifting some of these like traditional models where you're like, well, I gave them this reward, or I gave them the attention. They stopped momentarily doing the thing I wanted them to stop doing. And then they just like got back to it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it like walks you through like after you intervene, like how do they respond? Like how do they respond to your annoyance or your anger or your rage, whatever it was. And then it tells you what the coded messages were. And then it even lists some like alternative responses. Like what are some like interventions or like parenting tips for that? If you take our classes, they have kind of like 52 tool cards of interventions of things that go with them. There's also an app. It's like $2.99. You can download just like Positive Discipline for Parents. It's the tool cards. So it's like very user friendly for parents. Like I feel like if you learn nothing else from this podcast, like download the tool cards, look up the mistaken goal chart, and you can kind of start. There's books on it too, but you can kind of start educating yourself a little bit on. I don't want to parent this way anymore. Like I don't want to be in these cycles with trying to get my kid to do what I want them to do, and then them not. Because they're like little humans.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
With their own thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. And I think that's I keep looping back around to the patriarchy idea, but
because it's all real.
It is, we put less value on children as being human, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of look at them as not me. I'm just saying in general, the system looks at them as like not less quite there, don't have the same emotional needs or the same rights or whatever.
Deserve the same things.
Right. Yeah. Which is wild because it's kind of like, no, they like need more.
Yes.
So that they don't end up like they need more space. They need more training. They need more, right? So that they don't end up as adults that don't know how to do any of those things.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Like,
and it sounds like as a parent, you really need to approach, if you're going to do discipline differently, situations with curiosity.
Yes.
And in order to approach them with curiosity, you have to be regulated yourself and not triggered by what your child is doing, which is really difficult.
Well, and to not take it personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it does feel,
well, that's part of the patriarchy too,
personally.
Right?
Well,
yeah,
yes.
Right. And that is like they're a reflection of you.
Yes.
And if they're like not doing what they're supposed to be doing in public, then like that's on you. You're a bad parent. You're a bad mom, right? If they're losing their shit in the grocery store, or like we're out to dinner and like, she's having a meltdown and everybody's like, why would you bring her here?
It's rare, interesting because it's rarely you're a bad dad. It falls on the mother.
That's true.
You're a bad mom. Like that's that true. Idea.
Yeah, because the patriarchy doesn't believe that they believe, right, that the dad is paying for it, but they don't believe that the dad is there raising them.
Yes.
And rearing them. I don't really know where that phrase comes from, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
They probably see the dad at the grocery store and think, God bless him. He brought that kid out to the store. He's trying.
Probably
because,
he's
trying.
Or probably because his wife is like losing her shit at home, and bless him even more for that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like, he's giving her a break. Yeah. He's going above and beyond.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure on moms societally. Like that's tough.
And we uphold that bullshit because we like don't talk about how hard parenting is with each other. We don't like we're just kind of like in this little war zone thinking like, well, everybody else has it together. Everybody else's like social media feed looks perfect. And they have these like mom daughter dates and they went to the teapot, right? Like, it's like we uphold it with each other as women. Mm-hmm. Women are way worse than men about it. Like,
I mean, yes, the judginess and the just what we portray versus what reality is and stuff.
Can I circle back for a second about some things you said about Adler?
Yes.
Okay. One is you were talking about a misbehaving child is a discouraged child.
Yeah.
So I kind of had two things I wanted ask. So, and then you say like your response, is encouraging. That doesn't necessarily mean like praise. Could you say encouraging is similar to like empowering somehow?
Yeah. So positive discipline actually teaches that specifically. So kind of one of the core tenets is to use encouragement and not praise. Praise is supposed to kind of be like dessert, like you only have it sparingly. I mean, I have it all the time, but praise is really rooted in like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you did this thing, right? Praise is really rooted in I'm happy about this thing you did for me or near me or around me or right, or how you made me look to other people in public, right? Versus encouragement is really like, I appreciate, I notice. Those kind of key phrases are great. So if I'm saying like, I'm so happy or I feel, right? If I center myself in the feedback as the adult, that's already praise right there. Right? If I center them in it and it's not necessarily only rooted in the outcome, but it's also rooted in the effort. Like I noticed that you got back up after you fell. How do you feel about that? Right? And it's curious, like you're bringing, like, then it gives them space to be like, this is how I felt about that. Like I get to notice how I felt about it.
Oh, interesting. It's about how they feel about it, not necessarily them seeing success based on how the parent feels about it.
Correct, right? So if I'm only being fed, great job, good job, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you did this thing, or like, I'm so happy you finally turned your homework in, or I'm so happy you like, right? Versus just like, how did that feel? How did it feel not to fight to get in the car? Or how did that, my daughter started like clipping her own car seat belt in the middle. And she's always, but like my favorite part
That's
is
a life changer.
I just need her not to learn how to unclick it.
Oh,
like we'd be doing that on the freeway.
Yeah.
Like she tries to like, she's like a little escape artist. And I'm like, she's problem solving. She wants something and she's problem solving. So it's like hard not to be mad, but I'm like, safety issue.
Yes.
But like I just like wait and she'll be like, I did it. Like she's excited. She feels proud. And then you did it, right? I can validate her. So sometimes you just wait because they'll have the space to share how they feel about something they did. But if they don't, then using those like, I appreciate or I notice, right? It's more, and it's like, I appreciate you were able to clean up, or it's a lot of space and time, which as parents, it doesn't feel like we have. And what you're doing is you're teaching them about problem solving. You're teaching them like those intrinsic values about like I care about how I feel about something, not some other person, right? Like, have you seen those TikTok trends where they're like, I'm gonna take my daughter to this fancy vacation or this fancy dinner, so your ratchet ass son isn't gonna impress her with this thing? Have you seen these?
Yeah, I have seen stuff like that. Yeah.
And I think that's like a really interesting like context, but like, yes, like we're teaching them to like have these intrinsic values and motivations of like, I know who I am and this is what I'm proud of and this is how I feel about these things and these are the choices I'm gonna make that resonate with who I am. So that later down the road, right, I'm not going to be in a toxic job. I'm not going to be in a toxic relationship. I'm not going to allow people to treat me these ways. And so the biggest piece is, as parents, nobody tells you that you have to think about what relationship you want with your kids when you're not in charge of them anymore. Like 5 years after they graduate, are they still going to want to come home?
Yeah.
Like, do they still want to spend holidays with you? Do they want to move across the country and never speak to you and barely answer your phone calls?
You're a parent to an adult much longer than you're a parent to a child.
Facts.
Well, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah. So that's really helpful for the encouragement part. I wanted also to see if you could unpack when you said about Adler that a misbehaving child is a discouraged child. Could you unpack the word discouraged a little bit and what's implicated with that? Like, what does that mean for a child to be discouraged?
Well, what do you think?
Well, when I think discouragement, I think they don't feel like they're able to do something, or they feel like, they're not able to obtain what they want or to do what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so think about those mistaken goals, like that undue attention, right? Like I don't value or I'm not important because I'm not getting any attention, or I don't matter, right? The revenge of like, well, I'm so hurt and you don't even see how hurt I am. So let me teach you how hurt I am by hurting you. Misguided power is like, I have no power. And so I'm going to take the power, right? I need to be in charge, right? And then the last one of learned helplessness is just like, I don't matter. So can I just disappear?
Yeah, like resigned.
Right. And so all of those have long-term mental health consequences, right? So we think about depression, we think about anxiety, we think, right? Like all of those to me are also rooted in all of those mistaken goals as well. And so like kind of talking earlier, we brought up defiance is like one of the biggest things that parents often get their kids diagnosed with. And I say it that way very specifically is because when you are taking a child to a doctor before the age that they can really advocate for their own experience, like the doctor is really making a decision based on the parent's report. So if the parent comes in and they're annoyed and their kid won't do anything that they want, right? Like my mom probably could have taken me to the doctor and got me diagnosed with ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder, right? Like she doesn't listen. She's always a trouble. She's like causing all these issues. She can't, the big one is they like can't accept no. I'm also just like, that's wild, right? Like, so adults, we have this whole thing happening where no is a full sentence, set boundaries, like be healthy. But when you're a kid, you're not allowed to say no.
Right. And we have to learn it then as an adult because we're not taught it as a child.
That's like so wild, right? Like, and so I think that's a really interesting thing. I worked inpatient for a while and I worked with this psychiatrist so wise beyond his years who was like, oppositional defiant disorder is not a mental health diagnosis. It is a justification for parents to like to control kids more, right? Because they can medicate them, right? And sometimes what we're doing is we're medicating kids at pretty young ages with basically like they're like even in the hospital they're giving them like Benadryl, right? So they're giving them sedative to kind of calm their behaviors down. So this is, and that's to me that's a very big part of the patriarchy as well. So right, if there's not necessarily a mental health issue, but there's a behavior issue, these are the things we're offering them, right? So we're not prescribing like get them involved in a sport, get them off the video game, have them play outside, like find like healthy, appropriate ways for them to express their energy that maybe aren't negative. Take some parenting classes to learn that your kid can tell you no, like unless it's a safety issue, right? And so it's in this psychiatrist that I worked with, he's like, I'll never diagnose it, right? Because it's a gateway to a conduct disorder, like these other things that our world has some really big issues with, right? But it's kind of this like, you have reactive attachment, you have oppositional defiant, like I can't tell you no without you losing your shit. Like, well, yeah, because what no is saying to the child, right? Like what messages is no saying? It's like, you don't matter, you don't belong, you're unimportant, I won't give you the thing that you want. And your needs are totally unvalued.
So how do you say no without communicating those things?
Well, so the thing is I will say no to my daughter, but often my no is like, this is a safety issue. And like, you're going to have big feelings. I'm going to let you have the big feelings and we're going to help you regulate the big feelings. Got it. Okay. Right. Like it's interesting because a lot of parenting advice is like, well, here's all the ways you don't say no. And I'm like, well, that's avoidance, right? Which is healthy until it's not. Yeah. Right. So like, we don't avoid saying no, but there are conversations around like, sometimes Nana's going to tell you no. Sometimes Mom's going to tell you no. It's not often, right? Like I don't use no. And again, I'm not a perfect parent. I don't often use no. I try not to use no very often unless it really is a safety issue, right? And one of the things I think in my household this comes up with a lot is food. Is just this idea of like, if she wants something, I'm going to let her have it. Right? Like you want a cookie, you want some chips. Like I trust that you know your body better than I do. And I'm not going to like fed is best, whether you are 6 months, whether you are 42 and a mom or right. Like if you are being fed, like we can find some other ways to help you with some nutrients, but like, I'm not going to tell you no, like with like, if you want this food, have this food. Okay. Right. Yeah. Like, so there's some like baseline things that like, right. I think this like, don't have dessert before dinner and like, don't ruin your appetite and don't this and don't that and don't eat too much sugar and don't eat too much of this. And it's kind of like, okay. And also then what do we see as adults? We have problems with regulating the food choices that we make, or we end up in this cycle of like unhealthy eating. And it's kind of like, well, because there's good foods and bad foods. Yeah. Yeah.
We have a baby in the studio today, just so you know. So if you hear baby in the background or a dog walking around.
He's getting educated young, this one.
He's also showing how he can say no or yes, right? Because they do it in more than just words.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like critics often say that this idea of positive discipline or the tactics that you're describing, right, is just permissive, right? And it's going to breed this child that's out of control as an adult. And what do you like say about that?
Well, I mean, first of all, I hear that all the time. And I'm also just like, it's not breeding anything. It's human behavior, right? And it's withstood the test of time. Like, explain to me why. I've been doing it for 12 years. It existed like way beyond that. Adler is like, right, the OG of this, and his theories have been proven over and over and over again. Like, it's rooted in psychology, not just a parent that was like, this worked for me, and this is what you do when they bite, and this is what you do when they need to toilet train, and right, like it's more so traditional like behavior models are really only addressing the behavior, and this is really rooted in understanding the behavior and what's happening underneath the behavior. And so it's like it's not permissive, right? Like there are still consequences, right? I don't necessarily have to do anything. If my daughter doesn't want a coat, why am I going to fight with her? She's going to go outside and it's going to be cold. And then we can have a conversation about what do you do when it's cold out?
Yeah. So
right?
It's more about natural consequences. And I imagine that wires the brain nicely as to if you do X, then Y happens. And it's like an actual real consequence that like you're going to face in the real world.
Correct. Not just one that I've decided I'm mad and I want you to have.
Yes.
Right? Like, and so for a while, actually, it's interesting because some of their teachings have changed over the years. So when I first got trained, they also used natural and logical consequences. And logical consequences also were a part of kind of that program of love and logic. But the interesting thing is recently they've said they've only seen parents weaponize logical consequences to basically, right, like we say it's logic, but it is really emotional. And then, you know, the teen that like comes in late, like from their weekend and misses curfew. And then you're like, well, you can't ever have your car again. And that's logical because this, and this, right? So they've really said like, really taking out those logical consequences and like working through what the natural consequences are. And like by the time they're adults, they're going to make their decisions. Right. And I would even say they're making their decisions all along, but by the time they're bigger decisions and more important decisions, if you've taught them problem solving, if you taught them safety, if you taught them values, right? And not just like, well, I do what my mom tells me to do, or I do what my dad tells me to do, or do what, you know, the teacher tells me to do, or the adult. Like those are kids that are more likely to drink at parties because they're being pressured into it because they don't know who they are or what they believe. There are kids that are more likely to test out other things, to belong to groups that maybe are doing maladaptive things. Doesn't mean they're not going to do it, right?
Yeah.
But they also then have the skills to be like, I tried that and I didn't like that. And like, this is why I didn't like that. And I didn't make me feel good. And right. Like, I think that's the part too, is positive discipline is rooted in the space of like, we only learn if we fail. Right.
So let them climb and fall.
Yes. Within reason. Like our job as parents are to have boundaries around that. It's like the bumpers at the bowling alley.
Yeah. You still get to bowl.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. To take the coat thing with the car, to really oversimplify it. So are you saying that if you just tell your kid you're wearing a coat because I say you need to wear a coat,
you know,
those are the kids who are like go to parties and might be more likely because their standard of decision making isn't there, aka their mom or dad. But if a kid is like, oh, I'm wearing a coat because it's freezing outside, they might not fall into some of these maladaptive things because they're like, oh, I don't want this logical outcome that's going to happen. So I'm choosing this for me because I don't want to experience this negative outcome from this decision.
Right. Or maybe I've tried it and then I saw the negative outcome and then I've corrected course.
Right.
Right.
When it comes to, I found this interesting and I wanted to just get your opinion on it. So patriarchy is very much organized around consolidation of power versus sharing of power. And it's interesting because when I say no to my kids in maybe a way that is not directly saying no.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more of a negotiation. Maybe it's not the right time for this thing you're asking for, or the right place, or the weather is not right, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it could be more of a negotiation. And I just find it interesting that if these parenting models kind of teach us to hold on to our power in saying no, it seems like an extension of patriarchy, because you're not wanting to share any power with your kid. And sharing any power with your kid seems permissive, when really it's just you're not following the patriarchal cultural norm, which says you don't share any power.
Which I would argue that parents who need to have power at home feel disempowered in other systems that they're a part of, right? And so it is much easier to control my 2-year-old than it is to control, my boss or this work partner or my husband, or right. And so that is an interesting thing. And Adler has a lot of teachings around power and the idea that in every relationship, somebody is always striving for superiority. And that's kind of the word he uses for power, which really connects to what you're saying about the patriarchy. But you can do two different things. You can either you can acknowledge your power and bring people up with your power, which is what is rooted in positive discipline, and a lot of other like Adler teachings, or you can stand on top of somebody to feel more powerful, right? And so part of like the first piece of it is acknowledging power. Like I absolutely have power over my daughter, right? I could pick her up when she's like losing her business. I could walk out the door. I could, right? Like I pick when I change her diaper. I don't change her diaper. I pick when she wakes up or doesn't wake up. I pick when I pick when I open the baby gate or not, right? Like I have so much power over her.
Yeah. It's almost like you don't need to prove that, right? I mean, because just by the relationship in itself, she is a child and you are a parent. And that just is a power dynamic imbalance to start with.
And that shows up in education with a teacher versus a student. It shows up in therapy with a therapist versus the client. It shows up, right? It shows up in all ways, shapes, and forms. We are all empowered and disempowered in different ways. And I think being able to acknowledge the places you have power is really hard, but is really important in this conversation as well. Because if you are just like, well, look at all the ways I'm disempowered. Look at the ways, right, that I'm the victim, is like, that is such a red flag to me that you are also discouraged, right? And you are seeking places to have misguided power, which is also, right, a mistaken goal as well. And so if that shows up in your parenting, I'm like, oop, I know what your mistaken goal as a child was and how it's showing up for you. So like, that's kind of that legacy, that intergenerational trauma that shows up over and over and over again.
If you feel almost like victimized by your child, right? Like I am the victim in this situation because they are stressing me out, or they are dysregulating me, or they're making me feel this way, right? That you have this...
I'm going to have a nervous twitch over that, but yes.
but that you have this misguided need or misguided... What were you saying was that particular one?
Well, so I think what you're talking about might be slightly different.
Oh, okay.
So this idea that your child controls your feelings is such a fallacy, right? Like we only control our own feelings, right? Like, and the idea that you would give your power away to someone else, whether it is a partner or a child. Like my husband doesn't make me mad. Like my husband does stuff and I feel mad about that stuff that gets done.
Yeah.
Right? He also does stuff that makes me feel love and right. Like all those things too. And so it's like, to put your emotions in the hand of somebody else is wild. And then to even further put your emotions in the hand of, in my case, like a 2-year-old, right? Or your child or your teenager. That's like real wild to be like, I'm a grown, like, right? I'm a 40-year-old white woman and my 2-year-old is in charge of my feelings. Like that, it's not functional, right? I've now given her power. Like what you're talking about is when somebody is like actively choosing to hand their power to someone else. If you're trying to give it to your child, there is a level of your own mistaken goal there of like feeling like, right? I'll ask you, what are you deciding about yourself as a parent if you think your child has control over your emotions?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not saying that that's necessarily like...
No, but I think it's a great example. So like that, like I might think I'm a bad parent. I might think I have no control. Right? So we're always thinking and feeling and deciding about ourselves in every interaction, and every child is too, right? So if my child starts to realize that I give in because I don't want to be upset with them, right? Then they're like, oh yeah, I have power when I do this. I have power when I yell and kick and scream, or I have power when I have this tantrum. Like, so it's relational, right? And I kind of going back to earlier when you're like, when people say it's permissive, I'm like, the only thing that's permissive is if the relationship is permissive, right? And so everything is rooted in the relationship and understanding the relationship, and that requires understanding yourself as the parent first. And so what are my feelings in response to this? My child doesn't control them, but they're having behaviors that I'm struggling with. And so what do I do am I feeling like I don't have any tools to manage this behavior and I feel totally helpless and hopeless? And what can I do to learn some new skills to help in this situation?
Yeah, that's good.
That's always really empowering verbiage, talking about skill acquisition or tool acquisition.
Yeah.
Because then it's not that, oh, I am somehow incapable or deficient as a parent. It's, no, I just don't have the right tool for the job. I have a hammer, but I need a drill.
Well, also, what is this fallacy that we thought that they were going to be born and we'd come home from the hospital and we're going to know everything about any behavior they ever had?
Yeah.
Like, that's wild, right? And when you have more than one child, like, speaking about temperament is like, we see families that have multiple kids where maybe the firstborn is really easy and they're like, they're like one of the parents. Maybe they're like the mom a lot, and the mom's like, I got this. Like, yeah, we can definitely have another kid because this is like exactly right. And then the secondborn comes along and the secondborn is like a little more wild, right? I say that because I was secondborn and I was wild. And they're like, oh, what are we doing here? Like, I can't, this kid is triggering every single thing, right? Why can't you be like the first child? So then you're also starting to send messages about your role in the family as well. And so, so that plays a part as well. I mean, a message that I got unknowingly from my parents is like, your feelings are too big for us. We're scared of you, right? And I've had to do my own work as an adult of just like, I'm not scary. I just have big feelings, and my big feelings are mine, and those are okay.
Yeah.
Right. But those were really scary for my mom, who was much more gentle. My mom was more gentle. She was more just kind of like, go with the flow. Everything's good. And I was very strong-willed, right? There was nothing they were going to do to make me not do the things I wanted to do. And I, like, even as an adult, have had those conversations with my mom, and she's like, that's a little healing to hear. Because it was like not about her being a bad parent. It was like, no, I needed to learn my own way, right? Like, I wasn't stubborn in a bad way. It was like, I was only going to learn by doing the things I wanted to do the way I wanted to do them. Mm-hmm. I also still live in the world that way a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm okay with that because that's who I am. So, like, making space to know who your child is and like how they want to interact in the world and who they want to be, your values with your kids. And I think the church teaches this a little like poorly, is like, we think, you learn morals and values from the church, but they really are teaching you that you need to be in agreement with what we believe and what your parents believe. And it's not about agreement, it's about alignment, right? So I can have different values from my parents, and I absolutely do, but we can still get along because we're aligned. We don't have to agree, but we can be in alignment. And I think like letting your child and making space for your child to align with you without having to agree is also how you fight the patriarchy, right? The patriarchy is all about agreement, is all about like, we're right, you're wrong, get on board with us. And if you're not, like, you're out, and we will weaponize getting you out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think something I'm realizing in this conversation too is like my own perception of me as a parent and like how my children would behave if I was doing a good job.
What is that?
Yeah. Is like, no, what I'm like realizing is that it's more like, I think, oh, well, then they should be happy and they should be well regulated and they should be like all these things. And I would ideally like that, right? But also that equals like looking like compliance to me, looking like obedience. And if they're not, then I'm like, I've messed up because I haven't figured out how to like make that happen in a good, wholesome way. But it's still adhering to those patriarchal norms of you need to be a certain way emotionally. And that means that I'm doing a good job.
Which is wild because, right, as adults, like, are we allowed to have our big feelings? Are we allowed to be dysregulated? Right? Are we allowed to have some like kind of yellow, not green coping skills? Right? Yeah, we are. We can go to the bar and have a drink. We can like have a bad day and be like, this sucks. Right? Like, and nobody bats an eye about that.
Yeah.
But if a kid comes home from school and had a bad day and like is just like having a moment, we're like, you know, we gotta have a talk with the parent or the teacher, and we gotta like figure this out and solve it. And it's kind of like, no, they can just have a bad day.
Yeah, I think that we don't really allow children to have bad days, or like a lot for that. Like that, just sometimes they wake up and it's just not a good day. And that happens to me all the time. But we don't let kids be like, oh yeah, they're in a funk today. They're off today. Something, you know.
And then we want to talk about it and be like, let's figure out why and what we need to change, right? And then as adults, we're kind of like, in relationships, we should be like, do you want to be heard or do you want to problem solve? Well, what if you let your kids have that moment of like, do we need to problem solve? Do like I need to come in the picture here? And I think that was something really powerful that my parents started to do as I got older, of just like, do you need help with this? I'd be like, no, but like F these people and like this girl's the worst. And I was like, yeah, we hate that person. And right. And it was like, that is exactly what I needed. I didn't need you to fix things for me. I didn't, you know, and it's harder when they're younger to be like, what's going on? Is something wrong? And the world also is just like, figure it out, figure out what neurodivergence is happening, figure out what mental health thing, instead of just like, development happens at the space the development needs to happen.
It's probably more uncomfortable for us to sit with whatever's going on with them, like the bad day, versus sitting with it and also taking steps to fix it. Because if we don't have actionable steps to take, that there's nowhere for that energy to go, the uncomfortable energy that we have with it.
So why do we direct our uncomfortable energy to our child instead of sitting with our own right? Like we're expecting our kid to sit with the discomfort, but we don't sit with it ourselves, right? Because it's like very personal. It's very connected to like our identity as a parent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It has everything to do with your emotional experience as a person.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, I identify with that.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for me to empower them to sit with whatever's going on and let them experience it than for me to like, it's easier for me to let them experience it than to let me experience it secondhand with them.
Yeah. There is this is an obvious statement, a gross undereducation of normal childhood behaviors.
Facts.
And the fact that one, they can be very triggering to parents, just normal childhood development, right?
That part.
Or two, pathologized, right? Or three, in religious settings, it's a sinful behavior. And it's like, that's just like a normal developmental thing, you know? And I think that we could do so much for ourselves if we just educated ourselves on normal childhood development.
Yeah. And people have big feelings about which child development thing you choose, right?
It's like normal.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's different schools of thought on it, right? You have like Erickson's and I forget the other. Anyway, you have some different schools of thought on it. And then pediatricians are also being asked to like hold up their like the American pediatric stuff, and things get changed and shifted there too, right? Which, let's not pretend like the patriarchy doesn't have something to do with that, right?
Yeah.
Because some of that is coming down from government. And so I always tell people of like, educate, read the stuff, look it up, see the reviews, see what resonates, see what doesn't. Also, I tell people all the time, like, watch some Bluey episodes. Like there's a baby race episode about like, you know, Bluey wasn't crawling fast enough.
Oh, we did watch that one. Yes.
Such a good one.
It was
right?
a good one. Yeah.
Because it's super validating. Excuse me. It's all about, right? Like also how Chili, the mom, was like feeling less than, and then felt isolated and didn't want to go to her mom group anymore because like her kid wasn't the fastest and the smartest and the like, right? Like, and then it really, really centered that conversation we're having around parents personalize milestones. They personalize, right? Like, what did I do? And there's like this piece of like, what did I pass down genetically? There's all these pieces of guilt and shame. And
or should I be doing something about this?
Right. And then whatever sphere or circle that we center ourselves in will give us information about that. Right. So evaluating where you're going for the information that you're getting is a really important piece of the puzzle. Right. Because if I go to my pediatrician, I'm going to get one piece of information. If I'm going to go to my husband or my mom, I'm going to get different information. If I go to my mom friends, I'm going to get other information. Right. I mean, and even within mom groups, like, everybody got wild big feelings about like parenting and like, you know, the hot topics of like feeding and diapering and education and right. They're all such hot topics. And so then it isolates women even more. Right. And I say women specifically because it's typically those groups, right? Like I think like in pop culture, what is it? The Hillary Duff, like mom groups, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. No, there's drama. Yeah,
there's
stuff
drama
with that.
in the mom group, right? Because they all don't get along. Right.
Yeah.
But I think that also like underscores this idea of like everybody has an opinion about it. And where you go for the information can be really difficult and really hard because you also just want answers. You want answers of how to fix your kid, how to not let them down, right? Like, and how to do it right or perfect. That's also wild.
It sounds interesting with the mom group thing, which I know nothing about what you guys are talking about.
You need a deep dive.
Maybe I do.
Little Lizzie McGuire
Katie,
action.
record me while we're deep diving this.
Oh, that would be
for TikTok.
Okay, please do that. I love that.
It sounds, because what you're describing, what it sounds like to me is the same idea of, we have to be in agreement, not alignment. When I would probably think in a mom's group, everyone's aligned. You want the best for your kid. You want...
No.
No?
Because it's just another version of a high school clique, right? So if we don't...
I don't know. You tell me. I don't have no information.
Right. If we don't agree, I can ice you out, which is what happened in this situation. But then like the narratives about why you're getting iced out are different. And like...
What?
You're taking it to the social... Moms groups are wild. You got church moms groups.
There's a reason I don't attend mom groups.
I mean, facts. So some of it is choosing to see and to suss out what you align with and try it out and figure out what questions you need to ask. And you might also not align with teachers or things that they're choosing to do, like, right? And so figuring out as a family what your values are, like, and then how do your kids fit into that is really great, because then all your decisions come from that. All your parenting decisions come from that. And when they don't, you're like going to lay awake at night and be like, I didn't handle that very well. And like, you know, and then again, you're not going to lose sleep looking for the next tool. You're going to be like, these are the tools that align with like our parenting. Right.
Yeah. That's good.
And again, like it goes back to, what relationship do I want to have with my kids when they're 20? When they're 25, when they're 30, when they're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think also what's helpful for me is like, what skills am I wanting them to develop?
Yeah.
Like so that they can cope with life.
You're really good with that, with them.
Of just trying to see ahead. I don't know.
But even making that list. So something we do in positive discipline is making a list of all of the behaviors and all of the things, all the conflicts we have. Like, what are the things we struggle with, which I did in that presentation that you saw me at, is like, what are the behaviors that we're struggling with? And this would be a great thing for your listeners to do, whether you have kids or whether you work with people. Like, what are the behaviors? Like, what am I dealing with? And then what are the characteristics and life skills that I want them to have when they grow up? And typically when you look at those two lists, you only get the characters and life skills by problem solving, like in them learning how to manage the behaviors, right? So if I have the behavior and the parent or the adult can teach me how to regulate or how to solve that, I'm going to get the life skill, right? So they're like, we need to be the bridge between the problem behaviors and the mistaken goals to the life skills. Like, that's your job as the parents, to be the bridge.
That's good.
Yeah. Is a big part of positive parenting, is a big part of that noticing that, okay, kids usually act out of discouragement from one of these unmet needs. So is a big part of this just being proactive in wanting to meet these needs for belonging, connection, and significance
both,
and
right?
stuff?
Yeah. I mean, again, because you also have to fail to learn. So like, you can only be as proactive as like you can, right? But like, you're not going to keep every mistaken or poor behavior from happening, right? Like nobody's going to raise a quote unquote like perfect child. Like at some point there's going to be a mess up. At some point there's going to be a mistake, or the world is going to like sneak up on them in some way. And so it's really like, is there space to fail? And what happens when I fail? So it's the messages, like what are the coded messages your kids are getting? And am I giving them the message that it's okay to have a big feeling in public? Am I giving them the message that they can regulate themselves? Am I giving them the message that they can say no to things? Am I giving, right? What messages? And it kind of goes back to that thinking, feeling, and deciding. Like we're all always thinking, feeling, and deciding something about ourselves. And so Adler talks about something called private logic, and it's this loop that is going on in your head basically from birth till death of like the moment you're born, you are taking in information from your environment, right? You're hot, you're cold, you're hungry, you're tired, the lights are bright, all that stuff. We're always taking that information in. So you're taking it in, you're perceiving it, then you're interpreting it. So what does that information mean? And then you're creating a belief from that information. And then from that belief, you're making a decision about what to do about it. And that loop goes around and around and around and around and around for the rest of your life, right? And so if I am born and I'm crying because I'm hungry, and then my mom doesn't feed me or nobody feeds me, my belief might be that the world is really hostile and that my needs don't matter. And right. And then from there, I might choose, and we see this like with trauma, and I might choose that I'm going to shut down because it doesn't matter if I cry or ask for what I need. So I'm just going to figure it out, right? I'm going to just be kind of anti-dependent and not have any needs because needs aren't okay. Or I'm going to scream louder until I get what I need. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that can happen kind of in those negative ways. It can also happen in those positive ways. Right. So same example, if then the child gets fed or the child gets the need that they have, they then might believe the world is safe. The world is okay. I can ask for what I need. And so in every interaction that you have with a person, I would argue, right, is like this happens in relationships too, of like, if I ask for this thing, do they respond and give me this thing? Or if I ask for this boundary or I share this emotion, are they able to sit with it? What's the belief or decision I'm making about this person or this relationship that I have, right? And that's kind of how those things grow up in kids that turn into adults, right? Is like at some point we also were fed those messages, and what did we choose to do with those messages? Are we replaying those messages in our life in other ways and other systems? Are we passing those messages on to other people, right? And all of that lives in our head rent free all the time, 24/7.
I don't want to do some like in terms of the reactive parts. I don't want to be looking for external validation, giving M&Ms when they're potty training. I don't want to be shut down with no's all the time. And I know that things arise. You can't be proactive about everything, but I wonder, it's like the best defense is a good offense type thing. Where like, would it change the overall frequency of quote unquote misbehavior?
Yes.
If these needs are proactively being met.
Yes.
Because then it would minimize the more, I don't know.
Well, their bucket is full.
Yeah. Like that way I don't have to have as frequently.
Correct. And that's always the goal.
Things.
So another piece of positive discipline is family meetings. And there's really a structure where everybody at the family meeting, it happens once a week. Everybody also has a job at the meeting, gives them purpose, right? And you're also adding things to the agenda all week long, right? And it can be little things of just like, you know, I'm tripping over the shoes at the front door every day. We're struggling with it, right? And so kids can add things to the agenda, and some of the things are ridiculous, but right, we give them purpose, we give them space, right? And then you start with appreciations and gratitude for each other. So everybody says something that they love or appreciate about somebody in the family. Then you talk about the agenda. You talk about, right, what is a problem we want to solve? We only pick one. Right? We leave the rest for another day. We all pick one that we agree on, and then we brainstorm. There's no bad idea. Let's like brainstorm ideas of how we fix this as a family. And then we pick one to try for the week. And then we come back at the family meeting, right? It's kind of like a corporation. And we say, how did that go? did we like that? Was that like, did that work? Like, did that solve our problem? Oh, maybe it made another problem. Well, do we need to add that to the agenda? Right.
Yeah.
And you start with little things in the beginning and then you end with something fun altogether. Right. So I've had families that are like, oh, we just have dessert together. Or like we've had people do it with really little kids where like their fun thing is like, we're all going to run and find the thing we love and then come back and show and tell. Right. Like you can do lots of different things, or like, then we're going to go do a family activity all together, or, but it is really giving purpose, giving meaning, let them know that they like belong, bringing you all together to connect. It's filling that bucket like you're talking about. And then it's also being productive and proactive of like, there are some things that are kind of funky in our, right? Like in my family, it's Friday night pizza night, and we all sit down and we were like, okay, like we're having pizza, but also like this thing. And what is your schedule like for this week? And like, this isn't working. And, and that has been my whole life forever and ever. Back in the day when they had like, Family Matters and we could watch TGI Fridays.
TGI Friday.
So good. Right.
Yes.
So, every family finds different rituals around that, but rituals around that also decrease like mental health issues for kids as adults, because you're having that connection, you're having that sense of belonging, right? So it's those positive childhood experiences that they've actually proven decreases your mental health issues despite the prevalence of adverse childhood experiences. So
we are so got to do this.
Yes. No, I agree.
I would love to hear one of the little kids be like, well, so-and-so, she keeps leaving her pajamas in the bathroom, and then I have to walk over them or move them to go potty. Yeah. Like I want to hear some of the tea that's going on with them.
Yeah. Jennifer's going to be like, people don't flush the toilet.
Oh yeah. She will bring that up.
The one that I had for probably 2 years was that my sister would not put the toilet paper on the roll. And I don't know that it ever got solved, but I felt like there was like a place for me to be like, this is a thing I'm struggling with, the paper, right? And then I was also taught how to say it in not a crappy way, right? Like, she, right? Like, because then it was like, okay, well, let's frame it. Like, this is a thing that you like, and she doesn't want to do it, right? There was like space for these conversations.
You them communicate. You're teaching communication skills.
Correct. And so the goal is also that you leave an agenda out in a place that everybody can reach and they can add things to it anytime. Because that's the other part too, is like, isn't it great? Like we pop off texts to people all the time about like, can you believe this thing that this person did? And I'm so annoyed by this. I do that to Mackenzie all the time. It's like, add this to the list that we need to talk about, right? Yeah. But that sometimes right in and of itself, getting it on the agenda gives it space, gets it out of your
gets
head,
it out of it,
right? And then it's kind of like, oh, that can regulate me right then and there. Is like it'll be dealt with at some point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyway,
well, no, I love everything that you said. I want to close with this question. Okay.
Ooh.
I think that we often look to our children to validate whether we're a good parent or not. And that can look different every single day. And so what is a healthy way to evaluate if you're doing a good job and if you're a good parent?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, first I would say maybe we should do some journaling about what it means to be a good parent, because everybody's answer is going to be different, right? Like my answer might be very different than my mother's, might be different than yours, of like, what do I think being a good mom means? And my answer is very different than a lot of people that I know and a lot of moms that I even spend time with, because first I have to know what I'm measuring, and good mom that's not a measurement, right? Am I measuring it by, Mackenzie's good mom or Katie's, right? Like what am I doing? So I would first like, what do I think? And I would do that separate from a bad day, right? It's just like, what do I think being a good mom looks like to me? And then, so first I have to make sure I'm measuring the right thing, right? And this is very similar when I talk to my therapist when they're like, well, am I being a good therapist? I'm like, well, how do you know? Like, how do you measure, right? I can't tell your listeners like how to measure, what to measure, like if your kid's behaving or if your kid that, like, right? But like some days, and again, it has to change based on the day. Like if I wake up and I only have 10% in the tank, if I gave 10% of that 10% to parenting, I gave 100%. But if I wake up and I have 150% and I gave 150%, great. I gave 100% too, right? So like we have to know that it ebbs and flows. And so I'd say first knowing what you think being a good parent is, And then from there, like knowing like what your threshold each day is, right? So a lot of times when I wake up, I'm kind of like, this is what the day will look like. And this is what I hope that my daughter gets out of the day. And sometimes it's like, I hope that I can regulate myself and not lose my shit. Or like, I hope we can make it to the end of the day without like a broken bone, right? Some days that's what it is. Like, like, can we make it today without me like screaming bloody murder in the car? Like, right? Like, and that's a really good, like, can I wake up and check myself before I wreck myself, see what I have to give, and then plan from there, right?
Yeah.
And then at night, how did it go? Did I give 70%? Did I give 80%? Right? In my opinion, C is still passing. As long as I didn't give 0%, because self-compassion is something I would like to teach my daughter too.
Yeah.
Right. So when I wasn't a perfect parent, I being a perfect parent is not the goal. So I would say set your own measurements, evaluate, maybe share them with your partner, share them with somebody else that you trust, that you're aligned with, to be like, are these actually realistic? Or are these rooted in my own shit or the patriarchy, right? Are they mine and what I want for my kids? Are they rooted in what's best?
Yeah. Or rooted in comparison to others too, I feel like. Yeah.
That's a patriarchy too.
Yeah.
Right? So, because also like what's happening in your house is what's happening in your house.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah,
Right.
Everybody's is unique
Yes,
formula,
as it should,
recipe,
as it should be. Right? There's cultural stuff. There's different values that people want their kids to grow up with, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
Right? And so, and then how am I kind of checking that at the end of the day?
Yeah,
and then being able, you can use that positive discipline chart of like, we struggled here, and like, oh, I see how I fell into an old pattern, and like, right. So having the reflection of a growth mindset as opposed to my goal every day is to be perfect, or my goal is to be the best mom every single day. Well, sometimes the best is making it to the end of the day.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Thank you very much for being here, Megan. As a
Yes,
reminder, she does have a podcast herself called I Have Shit to Say, an explicit mental health podcast. And it's great. So you guys should check it out. We'll link it in the show notes. And yeah, I just really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I learned a lot personally, and I think our listeners will appreciate it as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope for those of you listening, something was intriguing or sparked a curiosity, or you felt affirmed or challenged. Stay educated. Take the pink pill. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a follow and maybe a nice review.